March Madness finally here, and it's time to break down the brackets. They were leaked, according to Twitter and CBS. If you didn't want to watch the 2.5-hour Selection Sunday show, which I don't think I've ever watched, about 40 minutes in, somebody on Twitter says, here's the full bracket. Somehow got into CBS and leaked it out for everybody, so sparing us 2.5 hours of watching. All right, to the brackets. Gentlemen, who do you like in at least the top half of the bracket, so the East and the South? Kansas and North Carolina get the 1 seed, Xavier and Villanova get the 2. Speaking of Villanova, a lot of Philadelphia schools represented. Temple, Villanova, 2 of them. I'm missing 3 others.
Joe's.
St. Joe's is in there.
They'll
be on the, and there's 2 more, I believe, in the bottom half of the bracket. But Kansas, according to things like KenPom rankings and TeamRankings.com, has the easiest road to the Final Four, and they also proved this year that they're the best against the top 50. Who do you like in the top half of the bracket, and more importantly, where are the upsets?
This year is a year where we saw, I think, a record number of top-ranked teams knocked off.
Yes. So
I feel like there are 5 really good teams in this tournament, exceptional teams, the 4 number 1 seeds and Michigan State.
Okay.
And then the rest of the, maybe you can throw Villanova in there, but then really from the rest of the 2s, certainly the 3s through the 7 seeds, I don't even know that you can call any of those games a terrible upset. If Xavier loses as a 2, to who's the 7 in that?
Middle to Dayton in the second round?
I mean, yeah, are we going to?
No, I'm sorry. You said Xavier. My bad. They're playing Weber State. Weber State's the 15, and then Wisconsin Pitt is the 7 versus 10.
Yeah, so I mean, if they lose to Wisconsin, I don't think that is it's a great upset. So there will be a ton of upsets, but I do think there is the top 5 teams are much better. But as we saw this year, number 1 ranked, the top ranked teams in the country keep losing.
Yeah.
So they could obviously go down now. Or sorry, specifically about the bracket there. Let's take a look at that top half, the Kansas bracket again, the same one we had. The most interesting game to me is, assuming it happens, and South Dakota State is a really interesting team because they crank 3 after 3 after 3, and Maryland has struggled in the last month. But Maryland and Cal are both capable of. Those are teams filled with NBA players. So Cal's got 3 first-round draft choices on its team. That's a fascinating, Brown, Rabb, and Wallace, and that second-round game is the game I want to see. And could either of those teams beat Kansas with teams stacked with NBA players, and Kansas doesn't really have that? Yes, unquestionably, although I think Kansas is the best team. So I would pay attention, assuming that we get the Sweet 16 game of Kansas versus the winner of Maryland.
You're not looking forward to the Hawaii versus South Dakota State second-round matchup?
I don't know much about Hawaii, but I know that Cal's defense can be so stifling that I suspect they're less likely to get upset than Maryland, because those teams that shoot threes, if they shoot 43s and they hit 18 of them, they're going to win.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter who you're playing.
Yeah. But if they avoid upsets, I fancy Maryland to potentially go pretty far. That's my team looking at that bracket.
They could. They played so poorly comparatively over the last month that I'm dubious. But I am looking forward to a Sweet 16 game between Cal or Maryland
and Kansas.
If they play the way they did against Purdue, which was probably their best. Is it Purdue or Purdue?
Purdue.
Purdue. Purdue.
Purdue.
Purdue. Purdue. That's probably one of the one. It was actually one of the first games I tuned into to watch.
You've each now mispronounced the team name today.
But
it's been good.
If they played that way, very similar, I think that was their most convincing win. I fancy them to do pretty well.
For the top half of the bracket, I like.
By the way, congratulations on being the first guy to analyze the bracket and use the word fancy.
Fancy
as a verb.
I get it. That's pretty funny. Okay. I like Temple. I like Temple to upset Villanova in the second round. I don't believe in Villanova. Like you mentioned that it's a top-heavy bracket. The 4 1 seeds. Definitely all. Look, how many times until a few years ago have we never seen all 1 seeds make the Final Four? It's actually a rare occurrence.
It is a rare occurrence,
and
you can make an argument this year that I can be incredibly hypocritical. You can make an argument that this year it's incredibly likely to happen because there is a significant tier after the first 5. But the flip side is so many teams are so good, it seems.
But that's exactly why I can't see all 1 seeds this year being it.
So many teams are so even. I don't know that they're so good. So even.
In addition to that, Kentucky over UNC in the Sweet 16. That's the Sweet 16 game I'm hoping for. I mean, UNC has to go through, Fairleigh Dickinson or FGCU, Florida Gulf Coast, who I think is the one who pulled the remarkable upsets
of Georgetown,
Of Georgetown, you're at the 15 versus the 2.
Andy Enfield, now the coach, got him the job at USC.
Right.
But apparently he's good at it. Took him a few years, but I'd rather have him than Steve Alford, but UCLA fans would rather have anyone than Steve Alford.
I have Kentucky in the Final Four. I have Kansas in the Final Four, coming out of the top half of that bracket.
I have Kentucky going all the way, and I think it's going to be an annoying ultimate result of this tournament because last season's John Calipari's team, as I talked to Snoop Dogg about, and I was there and he agreed, they looked unbeatable at times. They looked destructive at every team that they played against. They just completely just trucked them, right?
I like Kentucky because I like Ulis so much.
Tyler Ulis is great.
Phenomenal.
And look, you can't ever count out March Madness. My formula for March Madness, at least in filling out the bracket, which I don't think anybody has ever had a great one of it, backcourt gets you to the Sweet 16, bigs get you to the Final Four, coaching wins you championships at that point. So you look at the backcourt.
Sounds like a Hallmark postcard.
Sounds like a thing people say. I think the backcourt gets you all the way. That's the and I love Ulis and he could do it. But Kentucky, they're not tough. And
they're also small, which is
so I mean they would bristle at being called untough. So let's call them a combination of not tough enough considering how small they are.
Right.
Like
their biggest guys in their starters is 6'9".
You know, they had a chance to put A&M away yesterday late. They were up 7 with 3.5 minutes to play, and I think they gave up 4 offensive rebounds in the last 4 minutes, and A&M turned all of them into buckets and sent that game to overtime, and then some threes fell late in overtime, and Kentucky won that game. But they're not big enough, so I don't see it happening. And I know you don't like Marcus Page, but I do. And I mean,
I think we've been waiting 4 years on Marcus Page.
All right, so I think it's going to.
And now it's finally. I mean, look, I think it would be a great story if he can be player of the tournament. Yeah. But we've been saying that for now. I think maybe 5 years. If he didn't, I think he missed one season. It's a 5th-year senior.
I think that I don't know what's going to happen with Page, but I like him, and I like that. You know, you have the guy who handles the ball nearly. You know, he literally touches the ball every single time.
Possession. Yeah.
And like you saw what happened with what North Carolina did against Virginia is that Tony Bennett changed the nature of that game, made it a Virginia-paced game, and Carolina still controlled it, and they still won it, and they were still totally in charge of that game in the second half. I mean, they only won by 4, but they felt in charge of it. So I don't know. I like that they can play a couple of different styles. So I think North Carolina is going to win the national championship. That doesn't interest me at all. But of course, I'm looking forward to a Sweet 16 game and seeing Ulis and Page go at it, and maybe Ulis wins that battle. And I mean, if Kentucky loses, if Kentucky beats North Carolina, my jaw's not going to drop. I'm going to go, yeah.
And vice versa. Bottom half of the bracket, which we haven't talked about yet, let's take a look at that because it does include 4. It's got the star power, at least in individual talent-wise. Denzel Valentine from Michigan State, arguably the best player in the country. Isaiah Whitehead for Seton Hall. Buddy Hield for Oklahoma, another arguable best player in the country. And Brandon Ingram for Duke, another arguable best player in the country.
The committee, look, I don't know. I don't pay much time. I mean, I paid more. I could have been on the committee from the time I was 19 until I was 29. I mean, I knew as much as they did, right? Those years have gone. I don't watch as much. I got a kid. I got 14 other jobs.
Well, no one watches the regular season as much anymore because the product's going down.
But you picked the wrong at-large team from New York, and the committee's unwillingness to let go of mid-level teams from power conferences.
Talking about Syracuse?
Talking about Syracuse.
It's the biggest. It's a travesty that they're in the tournament.
Well,
just like how UCLA was last year.
Tulsa's more. UCLA had no business being in the tournament last year.
Exactly, but that's also. But this is exactly why you take Syracuse.
But here's a really important point: as people like as UCLA fans and some college basketball people debate the future of a guy like Steve Alford. UCLA made the tournament last year. Almost certainly should not have been. They went 19-13 or 19-12. I don't know, whatever the record was. Then in the first round, they draw SMU. They're an 11 seed, and they get SMU as a 6 seed. And Bryce Alford hits 8 3-pointers, and then they're down 2 with 6 seconds left, and he shoots another 3-pointer, and he shoots an air ball, and they call offensive goaltending.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't going in. It was an air ball. Maybe it was goaltending because the kid jumped up to get it too high. But I've never seen that call. It's crazy to win a game on a goaltending on a 3 that was an air ball, right? And so UCLA won, and then the 14 seed upset the 3 seed, and they got to play the 14 seed and go to the Sweet 16. So they didn't deserve to go to the tournament. Then they won on a goaltended air ball 3-pointer, and then played a 14 seed, and everybody's like, he took them to the Sweet 16. Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. No. Yeah. So really what happened is they went 19-14, missed the tournament, and they went 15-17 this year. I don't see how that stands at UCLA even with a $10 million buy.
Okay, to make that really clear, this is exactly why I'm taking Syracuse over Dayton, because when Middle Tennessee upsets Michigan State, they'll get the 15 seed, and they'll be Jim Boeheim will be back in the Sweet 16.
Jim Boeheim could coach, but Monmouth ought to be in the tournament, and that's just
because their bench.
No, they're good. They have so many great wins. You play a full schedule, you're going to have against crappy teams in their conference. Yes, they lost to a couple of them, but they ought to be in there.
That's I mean,
Tulsa.
I've got to do a clip on it. Like at one point, I wanted to do a full clip on it. Is that when it comes to American sports, it's so obvious that when it comes to reputation, it holds so much weight in tournaments. Yeah. In every sport, I think here it's because of the way things are seeded. But at college, it's even more harsh because there are kids that are going to get their education. Obviously, they're paying tuition. Most of them don't. But there's people that go to that school that want to see their school go to a tournament, and they all get behind it because the fandom drives this particular tournament. I love March Madness fans. The atmosphere is incredible. So it's hard to watch when some teams get into the tournament solely because of their reputation, solely because they're going to drive more tickets, more money. And that's the problem.
The committee, again, I don't know what that reasoning is. We're not in that room. Those guys don't go. Believe me, there's not a conversation when they go, Syracuse will get a higher rating than Monmouth, which I'm not even sure is true. I don't think it matters who you put in this tournament. People are going. I don't think that's true. So I don't know what their reasoning is. They clearly value that strength of schedule, but the fact of the matter is, Syracuse is, when they played in their conference, they're terrible. And if you're terrible in your conference, you shouldn't be in the tournament.
They were the worst RPI in the history of the NCAA to get into the NCAA tournament.
And they're not even in a play-in.
72nd ranked.
They're not even in a play-in game. It's nuts.
Which is ridiculous. They should
Monmouth, they had such a wonderful year. They have so many nice wins.
Yeah,
it's funny. They opened the year beating UCLA at Pauley, and it turns out it's not even a nice win.
Ben, we got to wrap up. Who's your Final Four?
Let me see.
You said UNC, Kansas.
UNC, Kansas. I want Buddy Hield to do it because he's so much fun to watch. But I think there'll be no one from that bracket. They won't send a team. Michigan. I like Michigan State over UVA again. And I guess, I like the idea of that Oklahoma-Oregon game. I hope it happens.
Yeah.
But I'll pick Oregon just on the nature that
nobody is.
Nobody will. And then, a very typical championship game of Kansas and UNC, I think is what I
so they have
I picked, and UNC winning.
Ben, you know where that takes place? Your favorite city in America.
What is
Houston, Texas.
Oh my God, I can't wait to go to the Final Four and spend 3 days in Houston. That sounds great.
Francis, your Final Four.
I'm going to go with definitely Kansas, Kentucky, but I think that Baylor might provide an upset.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go Baylor, Michigan as well.
Yeah, pay attention to that Sweet 16 game, Kansas and Maryland or Cal. That'll be a thrilling Thursday or Friday night.
I think, I wouldn't be surprised in Maryland, but that's what I say.
Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. Don't count out the coaching. Kansas, I took Kansas, which is boring because it's the
It is boring. It is boring, and I want to take Maryland. I want Melo Trimble. I want to see him, but
that would be a good pick too.
But it's not going to happen.
Kentucky to take it.
So comment below with what you think about the brackets, who you guys think is going to be in your Final Four. You can go over to facebook.com/TYT Sports, and you can click on the link there, which you will see an invitation to the TYT bracket. We will all be filling one out, including yourself, Ben Mank, Francis, Dan, our EP, and a bunch of others that we have here. You get to play against us. Last year we had about 300 of you guys do it. Winners after every weekend, T-shirts and a swag bag to any of those who...
Is there money?
No, it's just giveaways.
I'm not filling out a bracket.
I'm filling out Ben's bracket anyway, so it doesn't matter.
The point. Oh, great, a T-shirt.
You don't want to win a T-shirt?
Nope.
Then you don't get a T-shirt.
It's all about the Miller.